Some rulers fall by revolution. Some are dragged through the streets. Some meet the end of a rifle. But one man, António Salazar, ruler of Portugal for 36 years, lost his power and never even knew it. This is the story of a dictator overthrown with no shots fired, no headlines, no drama. A secret coup carried out, not by enemies, but by his most trusted allies. They didn't jail him, they didn't exile him, they lied to him. For 2 years, this is the silence of Salazar, one of history's strangest deceptions. Welcome to Hidden in History, where shadows still speak. Subscribe to the channel if you believe history isn't just what's remembered, but what's hidden. Portugal, 1932. Europe is trembling. Fascism spreads like wildfire. In Germany, in Italy, in Spain. In Lisbon, a quiet professor, António Salazar, is handed the reins of a fragile, bankrupt nation. But Salazar is not loud like Mussolini, not theatrical like Hitler. He is a technician of power, an economist, a monk in a suit. He builds the Estado Novo, the new state, an authoritarian regime wrapped in order, nationalism, and Catholic virtue. Parliament becomes a formality. Unions are crushed. Censorship becomes law. Children are taught obedience. Poverty is sanctified. To challenge him was to disappear. To question him was to betray the nation. In 1968, at the height of his myth, Salazar fell, literally. He rose from a chair, lost his balance, hit his head, a cerebral hemorrhage, a quiet collapse. No one saw it coming, and no one knew what to do. There was no vice president, no democratic fallback. The system wasn't built to survive without him. The ministers panicked, the military watched, the people were told nothing. Inside government halls, decisions were made in whispers, doctors sealed behind silence. And quietly, without public announcement, Marcelo Caetano was sworn in as Prime Minister. Portugal had a new ruler, but the old one hadn't died. Salazar regained consciousness weeks later. His speech slow, his thoughts intact. The ministers feared he might recover and try to take power back. They feared loyal generals, a counter-coup, even civil war. So they made a choice. They would never tell him. Fake cabinet briefings were delivered to his bedside. Invented reports, bogus statistics. Visitors rehearsed lines. His signature was collected on useless documents. He asked for updates. He gave orders. They nodded and ignored him. What began as a stopgap became a ritual. For 2 years, António Salazar lived in a parallel government of his own illusion. Outside, the world changed. Inside, he believed he was still the master of it all. Outside his chamber of silence, the regime began to crack. Young men were sent to die in colonial wars across Africa, Angola, Mozambique, Guinea-Bissau. Economic strain deepened. Students rose in protest. Political prisoners overflowed the jails. Marcelo Caetano, the new leader, lacked Salazar's cold charisma. He tried to reform, carefully, but too little, too late. The army watched and waited. The war was becoming unwinnable. The people were losing patience. And the illusion couldn't last forever. On July 27th, 1970, Salazar died in his home. He never knew that for the last 2 years of his life. He ruled nothing, that the ministers he trusted had outmaneuvered him. There was no outburst, no revelation, just silence, the only thing they ever allowed him. Four years later, the dictatorship itself fell. In what would become the Carnation Revolution of 1974, it was the gentlest revolution of the 20th century. Soldiers placed flowers in their rifles. The people flooded the streets. Marcelo Caetano surrendered, not to rebels, but to young military officers. The empire collapsed, censorship ended, the prisons opened. But the strange deception of Salazar's final years remains one of the most chilling footnotes in authoritarian history. Not because of how he ruled, but because of how he was quietly erased. It was not the people who overthrew him, not a bullet, not a protest. It was his own inner circle, his allies. And in the end, power slipped from his hands without him ever knowing it was gone. Power can be taken in an instant, but illusion can last until death. This has been The Silence of Salazar, an original production by Hidden in History. If you found this story haunting, enlightening, or important, subscribe, share, and explore our other episodes. Because where shadows still speak, truth still lives.